powerful individual who, after reincarnation, becomes an exceptionally talented child, surpassing all others in strength and skill. The story begins with a band of red ogres attacking a town. The townspeople cower in fear as the monsters approach, and a dragon is seen flying overhead. A man on the dragon's back chants, and hundreds of paper talismans descend onto the ogres. Each ogre is stopped by a talisman, causing a devastating chain of explosions that destroys part of the town. One ogre survives but is quickly eaten by the dragon in a single bite. We learn that this man is the world's strongest exorcist who sought to be the greatest. However, his search for power made the imperial court fear him, leading to his betrayal. Even his favorite disciple was sent to oppose him. In his final moments, he casts a secret reincarnation spell, swearing to do better in his next life. We then meet a boy named Seika in the middle of a magic circle. His father performs a ritual to examine his power, but none of the elemental stones light up, indicating he has no magical power. His brother Glai mocks him for being an embarrassment. We learn that Seika was reborn into a new world where magic is different from his past spiritual arts. Despite lacking mana, he senses great spiritual energy in his body. We see Seika gather some leaves since paper is too expensive, creating shikigami from the leaves. The leaves transform into mice and crows. His brother Glai approaches, threatening to hit him, but Seika's crows defend him. Their older brother Loth rushes over, chases off the crows, and takes Glai to get treated. Seika is learning about his new world on his own. As the son of a mistress, he has lower status and is generally ignored at home. He works hard to make his own paper and finally creates his paper talisman. A young maid named Aoife returns his coat, which his brother had thrown out. Glee enters to taunt them, bragging that he'll be attending the Imperial Magic Academy. Their father shows up, telling them to return to their training. Seika asks to join them. Loth demonstrates his spell, creating a wind blade that blasts through a large stone. Glai shows off his magic, shooting a fireball at the target. Glai is proud and dares Seika to try. Believing he has no power, Seika reluctantly takes the wand, deciding to show his power to deter his brother from harassing him. Using his spiritual arts, he fires a blue fireball that destroys the target. The family is stunned by his power and the fact he cast his spell without an incantation. Glai tries to take credit, saying it was his leftover power in the wand, but their father acknowledges Seika's abilities. Seika asks to study magic, but his father refuses, saying it would be pointless since no one without magic has ever been successful. However, he gives Seika a tutor, granting him access to books. Seika spends all his time learning about magic and spies on his brother's lessons. As years pass, Seika finishes his talisman. We learn that in his past he would defeat demons and seal them in another dimension to call upon later. He believes he can still summon his servants in this world. As a test, he attempts to summon his most well-behaved demon. A door appears and a young girl emerges. Overjoyed to be reunited with him, the girl, Yuki, explains that her appearance is different because his spiritual energy is lower than in the past. Seika is glad it worked, and Yuki insists on staying with him. The next day, Glai yells at Aoife for spilling water on him and suggests she find a way to make it up to him. Seika comes to her rescue, saying he needs her. Glai gets annoyed and tries to punch Seika, but Seika easily stops him, causing Glai to storm away. Aoife thanks Seika and leads him outside to show him an injured bunny. She wonders if they can save it, and Seika asks her to turn away so he can focus. He takes a hair from the creature and uses his talisman to successfully heal it. Aoife praises his talents, and Seika notices that she too is special. Aoife becomes nervous, but Seika realizes she can see the spirits of animals. Aoife reveals that she can actually see elemental spirits, but finds it odd that these spirits seem to actively avoid him. Seika inquires if she can command these spirits, and Aoife recounts a time when wind spirits took her laundry. She yelled at them, and they seemed to go away. Having studied this ability in his past, Seika recognizes Aoife's potential and offers to teach her about magic. Although Aoife says she lacks the mana for magic, Seika demonstrates by summoning a soul flame and instructing her to banish it. Aoife tries asking it nicely without success, but when she loses her temper and demands its disappearance, the flame vanishes. Despite her weakness, Seika sees that Aoife has the potential to be a great ally in the future. They become friends and secretly train together over the next year, across all seasons. On Seika's 12th birthday, there is no celebration as usual, and his father isn't present. Although he tries to stay unaffected, his brothers approach him with wooden swords, Glee, as usual, reminds Seika of his unworthiness and says that his only option in life is to join the army. Loft clarifies that they want to help him learn to fight with a sword. Suddenly, the maids warn them of a monster approaching the house while their father is away. Seika senses its approach, and in the forest, the head of a giant elder newt emerges. Gly runs off in terror, and Loft tells everyone to find safety, but Seika heads outside and sees that the beast is targeting Aoife. Seika rushes to help, and as the monster attacks, it is repelled by a flame. Seika is impressed that Aoife managed to command the flame and proceeds to lure the beast away from the house. The monster lunges at him as everyone watches in terror, but Seika uses his spiritual arts to shoot a poison blast into its face. The beast falls, disabled by the poison, and Seika prepares to tame it. Everyone is amazed at the feat, applauding his victory. Seika waves, glad that his family finally seems to appreciate him, and hopes this will be the start of the life he has dreamed of. A feast is thrown in his honor for the first time, and his father congratulates him on his accomplishment, noting that even veteran adventurers would have found the beast challenging. His father offers a reward, and Seika asks to study magic at the Royal Academy. His father, recalling how diligently Seika always studied magic on his own, agrees to the request but warns that even though they are nobles, Seika will need to pass the entrance exam on his own merits. Seika also requests that Aoife attend the academy as his attendant, wanting to keep her unique ability around. Aoife panics at this suggestion, but his father dismisses it, saying it would be pointless since Aoife has no magic. Seika decides to demonstrate their training. He hands Aoife his wand and instructs her to command as many spirit flames as she can and pretend to cast Flame Note. She commands the flames and follows his instruction, shooting an impressive blast. Gly is shocked she could use intermediate magic, and their father accepts Aoife going as well. Gly objects to his father's decision, saying it would break tradition to send two brothers on the same path to the academy. His father agrees and tells Gly he will be joining the Imperial Army instead because he had always played with his sword instead of improving his magic over the years. Gly can't accept this and challenges Seika to a duel to see who gets to go to the academy. Their mother tries to stop them, but Seika accepts the duel, and their father decides the duel will take place in the morning. Back in his room, Yuki appears, commenting on the drama. There is a knock at the door, and Seika gets a visit from Loft. His brother wishes him a late happy birthday and gives him a gift, a glass pen, because he always studied diligently. Loft goes on to apologize for being distant, but is glad Seika turned out to be a fine young man. He asks him to take it easy on Gly during their duel and wishes him luck at the academy. Later that night, Seika's window gets blown open and Gly demands their duel. He couldn't wait for the morning and didn't want to follow their father's rules. He says Seika just got lucky that a monster appeared and that he lucked into defeating it. Gly attacks with his Flame Note, engulfing Seika in flames, showing he can also use intermediate magic, but it has no effect on him. Gly follows up with his Wind Lance, but it's stopped by a barrier. Seika takes out a paper talisman and Gly continues to attack to no avail. Seika commands Gly not to move, and he becomes completely frozen. Seika scrunches the talisman in his hand, causing Gly to feel the same pain. Gly is confused about his powers and is ultimately forced to concede. He passes out, and Yuki wonders if it was wise to let him see his power and live. But Seika says he promised Loft he would go easy. Seika thinks back to Gly calling him lucky, but it turns out this was all part of his plan. 6 months earlier, Seika summoned a gigantic cyclops named Nudo. Despite its appearance, it is glad to be able to serve him once again, and Yuki boasts that she was the first one summoned. Having researched the monsters in the area, Seika tasks the Cyclops with driving the Elder Newt out of the mountain. As he goes to pick up his brother, Yuki wonders why he doesn't show off his true powers, calling the people of this world weak. He reminds her that it was the schemes of the weak that got him killed in his previous life, so he will not make the same mistake again. Sometime later, Seika and Aoife prepare to leave for the academy. Loft passes on their father's words, telling Seika to study hard and Aoife to take care of him. The two leave, and along the way, Seika gives Aoife a necklace. She is overjoyed to receive it, and he tells her that they are mana stones that will help her draw in the elemental spirits. They are excited about their new adventure, but Seika starts to feel sick, struggling with motion sickness, a problem he had even in his past life. He feels better as they approach the Academy City, a fortress dedicated to pursuing magical excellence. Back at home, Seika's father thinks about Seika arriving at the academy soon. He remembers 12 years ago when a woman showed up at his door and disappeared after handing over her child. We learn that Seika is actually the son of his brother, Gilbert, who became an adventurer after graduating from the academy, but was lost when he entered the Infernal Lands. Seika's black hair and eyes are rare in this country, and he started using magic when he was only 1, causing Loth to distance himself and Glide to become hostile after finding out he had no mana. His father always knew there was something strange about Seika, something within him that could either let him become a hero or a lord of evil. He felt bad for sending Glide to the army, but decided it would be too risky to send Seika there, so he sent him to the academy, hoping it would be a better place to nurture him. Seika and Aoife arrive at their room. Aoife is surprised. Seika has a weakness, and he tells her that her room is next door. She seems disappointed, suggesting that she should stay with him for the night since he is her master now. Seika misinterprets this as staying for dinner and says he has lost his appetite from the ride. Although disappointed, Aoife leaves to find him some food. Yuki bursts out annoyed, saying Seika has no clue about girls, and points out that Aoife is in love with him, even using her position as his slave to her advantage. Seika is left in disbelief. Later, the two explore the city, but Seika senses a strange energy. They continue to register for the entrance exam, and when Seika reveals he is from a noble family, everyone around takes notice. Aoife introduces herself as his slave, surprising the others. There is a magic tool that measures mana, and Aoife is shown to have an affinity with wind and fire. When it is Seika's turn, nothing happens, and the woman is confused. Seika reveals he has no mana, and the woman tells him he can still register. The other students start to gossip, saying he will get in because of his family. Aoife gets mad hearing this, accidentally leaking out flames. The gossip stops as a girl confidently walks past. Seika notices something about her, and she introduces herself as Amu. As she places her hand on the device, it radiates with a blinding white light, indicating a strong affinity with all 4 elements. Everyone is amazed, and Seika calls to her, thanking her for stopping the gossip. She says she wasn't trying to help him, but is actually annoyed by him, thinking he can get in without any magic and saying he would just get in the way. Seika recognizes her as his prized disciple from the other world. Although her appearance is a little different, he can tell it's her. They take the entrance exam, and Aoife worries about how she did. Seika reassures her that she can make it up during the practical exam. During the practical, the examiner explains that there are targets set up for each of the different elements, and their score is the total of all the targets they hit. The students proceed to chant their spells and fire at the targets, but Seika is not impressed. When it's Aoife's turn, she uses her Flame Note spell, creating an enormous flame and even causing the flame-resistant target to burn. Everyone is shocked she used intermediate magic without an incantation. Aoife continues to the next target, using her Wind Lance spell, which completely destroys the target. She apologizes for the damage and is still nervous about passing, but Seika is amazed by her progress. She tells him she has been practicing on her own to surprise him, showcasing her growth. Seika starts to tear up as he gets called up for his turn, and the others gossip about him having no mana. However, Seika shoots his fireball, and they are shocked by his blue flame. Seika moves on to the earth target, using his knowledge of spiritual arts to destroy the granite target by turning it into a crystal. The examiner panics, wondering what spell he just used, but Seika quickly moves on to the water target. Using one of his talismans, he employs his frozen arts to produce water, which he turns into a glacier. Everyone is left shocked, and Seika wonders if he overdid it. After the exam, the examiners are left in disbelief, especially since Aoife was measured to have weak magic, and Seika was meant to have no mana at all. They discuss the exceptional student, and note that Amu performed even better, completely destroying all 6 targets. They speculate that she could be the hero that legends say will appear when the Demon King is revived. A few days later, the results of the exam are posted. Aoife worries about failing, but Seika finds himself in 3rd place and wonders who could have beaten him. It turns out Aoife is in 2nd place, and Seika can't believe she beat him. They see that Amu came first, and Aoife is impressed by her. A few days later, they receive their acceptance letters and head to the academy for the welcome ceremony. Aoife worries they won't be together because they will be in separate dorms, but Seika tells her not to worry. He suddenly gets a strange feeling and asks Aoife if she can see any spirits. Aoife reveals that there are several dark spirits, and Seika goes to investigate. They find a huge magic circle and feel something is off, but since it could belong to the academy, they decide to leave it alone. However, Seika leaves behind some of his talismans. Inside the academy hall, there is a feast for the students, and Seika can't help but grab some food. Amu starts to give a commencement speech as the student representative, but as she speaks, Seika feels something approaching. The magic circle is activated. The doors are suddenly blown open, and lesser demons appear. The students panic and run. Seika sees that the demons seem to be looking for something. Some students stay behind to fight, but Seika notices how weak they are. One of the demons approaches, and Seika prepares to step in, but the demon gets cut, and Amu steps in. She uses her wind lance on the demon and engages it in battle. Seika looks around the grounds using his talismans and finds the caster by the circle. He warns Aoife to stay safe and disappears, leaving only a talisman behind. Seika approaches the demon in the forest, trying to talk with it, but the demon calls him a fool for challenging him. The demon summons more lesser demons to attack, but Seika instantly crushes 2 of them and traps and captures the 3rd one. The demon, introducing himself as Gallius, the metal demon, is impressed. Seika attacks using his talisman, but the demon destroys it. Seika is surprised the demon can see his invisible talismans and tries again with more talismans, but they also get blocked. The demon shoots out a blade which Seika easily dodges, but it suddenly reappears, and he realizes the demon can teleport the blades. The demon can also shoot fire, and as Seika jumps to dodge, the demon appears behind him, cutting him and causing him to lose one of his arms. Remembering that the demons were searching for something, Seika asks what the demon is after. Gallius reveals that he is looking for the hero. Seika says the hero is just a legend, but Gallius insists it's real, saying that years of peace have caused people to forget and think of it as a legend. He reveals he received an oracle 12 years ago and believes Amu to be the hero. Gallius continues to attack with his blades, and Seika gets impaled, and the demon finishes him off. As Gallius turns to head for the hall, Seika is revealed to be completely fine. The demon is confused how Seika is alive, and Seika gets stabbed in the head, but says he can just revive. The demon is determined to kill him and then stop the hero before she becomes the strongest, but Seika asks what it means to be the strongest. Gallius attacks, but Seika dodges and floods the area, creating a whirlpool. The demon gets away using his teleportation, reappears, and Seika opens a gate, summoning a thunder beast that strikes him with lightning, having drenched the demon beforehand. Seika thinks the fight is over, but as the smoke clears, the demon is missing and suddenly stabs him from behind. Seika says he is the one who caught him, and there is a huge explosion. Despite this, the demon survives and starts to get back up, powering up, and says that Seika must be out of talismans soon, but Seika reveals he has plenty to spare, saying he has been diligently making them for years. Deciding to bring things to an end, Seika opens a gate to one of his strongest servants, bringing out his dragon serpent. The demon is shocked to see such a beast, saying that even the demon king wouldn't have a dragon. The dragon rushes at him, crushing him with a single bite. As Seika tries to call back the dragon, it goes wild and tries to get away. Seika uses his talismans to herd it back into its gate. He is surprised it rebelled against him, thinking it must be because of his weaker state in this body. Yuki suddenly appears, wondering if it was okay for him to use so many body Jaracina double talismans, but he says it was necessary to work out the demon's attack patterns. Seika returns to the hall, and Aoife is worried about him. Aoife tells him that Amu ended up taking out all 3 of the lesser demons by herself, and the other students look at her, shocked but also concerned. Seeing their looks, Seika can tell that she will end up just like him in the past. He is determined to help her become the strongest, so he can sit back and enjoy his life instead. 1 month after the demon attack, the academy has calmed down. Seika and Aoife get to their next class. Their professor tells them that the founding anniversary is coming up, so she needs the top 2 students, Amu and Aoife, to help out with the ritual. The professor explains that they need to take the new student roster to a temple in the forest and have it blessed. Seika thinks it could be dangerous, having fought the demon there. He asks what would happen if one of the students declined, and the professor tells him he would be next in line. Hearing this, he orders Aoife to give up her spot. The other students are shocked, but Seika says that such an important ritual shouldn't be carried out by a slave. After class, he apologizes to Aoife, and she realized that he was trying to take the attention off Amu, who people had started to resent after her performance against the demons. She wonders if Amu is his type, but Seika says he just wants to be her friend since she is the strongest. A few days later, Seika is handed the roster, and he heads off into the forest with Amu. Amu's head suddenly hurts, and Seika notices a magic circle. They find it strange, and it suddenly activates, transporting them into a dungeon. They are engaged by 3 lizard men, but Amu rushes at them, using her fireball to take them out in an instant. An ogre appears behind her, but Seika summons a wood pillar and crushes its head. Amu finds his spell strange, but Seika plays it off as a spell he learned as a noble. They start exploring the dungeon, and Seika lights the way using his talismans. He leaves a trail by sticking talismans to the ceiling. Yuki wonders what he is doing, and Seika explains that he is leaving a trail so that his Shikigami on the surface can hopefully find him and help them get out of the dungeon. He suddenly notices more monsters approaching. Amu charges at them once again, but as she fights, her head hurts and she gets knocked out. Seika rushes to help her, using his wooden stakes to impale all the monsters, but there are just too many. Seeing that Amu is passed out, he summons a giant centipede, which is able to take out the rest of the monsters. When Amu wakes up, she is surprised that all the monsters are dead. Her head hurts again but feels better when Seika puts up a barrier. He tells her his barrier can block curses. Seeing as the barrier stops the effect, they can assume she is cursed. Amu wonders if she will have to stay in the barrier forever. Seika finds the exit to the dungeon and the two continue on through it. They come to the boss room and find a gigantic Naga monster. It spits acid on Seika, but Amu distracts it with her wind lance, and Seika summons a metal spear to pin it down. Amu uses her fireball, causing a chain reaction and explosion. Amu takes the opening and stabs it in the head, finishing it off. After the battle, Seika and Amu are overjoyed they managed to take out a dungeon boss. They head to the treasure room, where they find a mithril sword, which Seika gives to Amu, and Seika gets a magical ring. The two finally manage to escape and report everything back to the professor. 1 year passes, and things have been peaceful. The students are having another feast, but he suddenly gets approached by the vice principal. He gets told that he and Aoife need to see the principal. As they enter the office, they find a small dwarf woman. She comments on how she thought he would be more cocky, and Seika is surprised the demi-human is the one running the academy. The principal is surprised by such a comment. The principal gets to the point and tells him that she wants him to enter the capital's sword fighting tournament. She calls in another student named Mabel and informs them that their academy has been given 2 entries for the tournament, one for Mabel and the other for either Seika or Aoife. Soon after, they are on a carriage headed to the capital. Seika is confused about why Aoife and Amu are tagging along. Aoife says she is coming as his servant, and Amu says she has always wanted to visit the capital, but Seika can tell she just wants to see the tournament and how Mabel fights. He wonders where she plans on staying, and she says she will be crashing with Aoife. They finally arrive in the capital, and Seika is sick from the ride. Mabel has already left, and Aoife suggests he should rest, but Seika insists on going to the arena to check out the tournament bracket. He finds that if they both win, he will face Mabel in the semifinals. After checking out the bracket, Seika decides to go and rest at the inn. The day of the tournament arrives, and the announcer talks about how the rules were changed to allow magic. The participants have a special amulet that absorbs damage for the fighters, but if it breaks, the match is over. Seika sees this as a way the tournament is trying to prevent casualties. Seika is introduced in the first match, and his opponent is an ex-noble mercenary, nicknamed the Godspeed Bulldog. He is a pure swordsman, known for his impressive speed. He considers himself lucky to have Seika as his opponent, since he has a grudge against nobles, and the fight begins. He instantly stabs Seika, but using his talisman, Seika gets behind him. He uses another spell and instantly blows the man out of the ring. The fight is over, and Seika is declared the winner. The girls cheer for him. As he joins the other two in the stands, the next round begins. They meet Byrne, the prime disciple of a sage famous for using water magic, and his opponent Kyle, a guard for the Leg Rock merchants. When the match begins, as Byrne prepares himself, he suddenly notices Kyle's glare. Kyle slowly approaches as Byrne stands completely frozen, and Kyle just walks up and stabs him. Blood goes everywhere, and the crowd is shocked and confused. Seika gets a closer look at Kyle and sees that he wields an evil eye, which gives him the ability to hex people with a single glance. Seika comes out for his second round, and his opponent is an enormous golem enchanted with magical defenses. Its master gloats that it was specifically designed to fight against mages, but as the fight begins, Seika quickly summons one of his demons, which slashes right through the golem and disappears. For the spectators, it looked like Seika just used wind magic, and the woman is confused about what happened, and he is declared the winner. As Seika returns to the stands, Amyu wonders if he will join the Imperial Guard if he wins the tournament, but Seika says he intends to turn it down. Amyu is relieved to hear this, although she tries not to show it. The next match of round 2 begins, and it's Mabel's turn to fight. Her opponent is Haro, a highly skilled earth mage. When the fight begins, Haro attacks using his rock blast, but Mabel slices right through them. Surprise, Haro continuously fires his rock blast, but Mabel is able to stop them all. Haro backs away and starts chanting to use his advanced magic. He summons a wall to protect himself, but Mabel throws knives and destroys the wall. Haro creates multiple walls, but Mabel knocks them down using her daggers. Amyu wonders how she is doing it, and Seika thinks she must be using gravity magic to make her weapons heavier than the stone walls. And Haro tries to counterattack, but Mabel charges at him and destroys his staff. Haro admits his defeat, and Mabel is declared the winner. That night, a man is sending off a carrier pigeon, but it gets intercepted, and Seika appears. He accuses the man of working for the devils, but the man pretends not to know what he is talking about. As he walks past, he tries to attack Seika, but gets restrained by Seika's vines. Seika reveals he saw him talking with an information dealer using one of his shikigami. Seika asks him about the message he was sending, but the man refuses, saying he will never talk even if tortured. Seika summons one of his demons, Satori, and as the man looks at it, Satori is able to read the man's mind. Seika asks him questions and finds out he is working for the devils. Seika guesses he is after the hero, and the man is surprised because it should be a secret. Seika asks for the name of the hero he is after, and it turns out to be Mabel. Seika wonders why he thinks she is the hero, and it's because she matches the description given by their spy. But since Seika took out Cordell, they can no longer confirm it. After learning all of this, he releases the man from his vines, but tells Satori he can eat him as a reward. The man is horrified and gets devoured by the monster. As Seika opens his gate to send him back, Seika works out that the Academy's plan was to send Mabel to win and draw all the attention as the false hero so the devils would stop targeting Amyu. Yuki is curious about Mabel's identity, and Seika suggests she must be using a fake name, although he doesn't care to investigate her further since she is there to protect Amyu. The next day, Kyle takes out his opponent in the same way thanks to his evil eye. Seika goes up against a necromancer in the 3rd round, but defeats him with ease, and Mabel easily wins as well. After her fight, Mabel confronts Seika, telling him he should withdraw before their fight in the semifinals, but Seika refuses. She acknowledges his strength and warns him that she will have to go all out against him, but doesn't want to end up killing him. Seika still refuses to withdraw. There is a sudden announcement that Kyle's next opponent has withdrawn, so they decide to move up the semifinal match between Reina and Kyle. As the fight begins, Reina buffs himself with light magic to protect against the evil eye. Amyu is surprised he can use light magic on top of the 4 elements. Reina starts to gloat since he is immune to the evil eye, but Kyle slowly advances. Reina shoots his fireball, but it seems to have no effect. He keeps attacking using all his different elements, but Kyle is unfazed by the attacks and continues to move forward. Seika thinks he must be using gravity magic just like Mabel. Reina starts to get desperate and summons an army of golems to defend himself, but Kyle uses shadow magic and destroys all the golems in an instant. Reina charges at him, but is stopped as Kyle binds him with his shadow. As Kyle goes to finish him off, the refs call the fight, and Kyle is declared the winner, advancing to the finals. Mabel is determined to reach the finals and asks Seika to withdraw once again. Seika reveals that he knows she is a stand-in for Amu, suggesting that her mission is to win the tournament, posing as the hero to draw the attention of the devils. Mabel is surprised at how much he knows but corrects him, revealing that her mission isn't to win the tournament, but to be killed by Kyle, so that the devils will think the hero died. She reveals that both she and Kyle were trained by the League Rock merchants, who take talented slave children and train them to become soldiers. The merchants are testing Kyle to see if he has become a real soldier. Seika is curious about what she means, and Mabel explains that the merchants perform an operation where they open up the skull and engrave magic on the brain, causing the soldier to no longer feel any fear or doubt, making them perfectly obedient. The merchants train children in groups of 4, living and training together. They are taught to rely on and encourage each other, but eventually only one is chosen to undergo the operation, and they are then tasked with killing their 3 friends as a final test to becoming a soldier. She reveals that she is the final person Kyle needs to kill. Although her mission is to die, Mabel plans to make it to the finals so she can kill Kyle. She says that Kyle killed her brother, so she wants to get revenge. However, Seika realized that Kyle is actually her brother. He can tell that her hair is dyed and that she has the same eyes as him. Seeing that he figured it out, Seika wonders if she can even beat him, but Mabel is determined to try no matter what, as she will probably end up dead regardless of the result. After hearing all this, Seika decides that he will be the one to get to the finals and defeat Kyle. Mabel is surprised to hear this, and Seika says that she doesn't need to be the one to beat Kyle. Mabel says that it's already too late for her, but Seika tells her she can just go back to the academy. She knows that the merchants would never allow that, but Seika promises that he can protect her. Mabel doesn't believe him, but Seika claims that he is the strongest there is. Mabel thanks him, but swears to go all out to win against him. The next day is time for their semi-final match. Mabel wields a gigantic battle axe in this round. Seika is excited to see her real power. The fight begins and Mabel goes on the offensive. She slashes through the rubble attacking Seika, but he avoids it thanks to his talisman. Seika is impressed at her speed, thinking she must use gravity magic to lighten her axe. He blasts her with some stones, but she swings out of the way. She throws daggers infused with her gravity magic, but Seika easily blocks them. He counterattacks using his vines, but Mabel breaks free. However, her axe becomes too heavy as Seika mentions he made it 1,000 times heavier. He attacks with vines once again, but this time they are infused with mercury, making them much stronger. He grabs her axe, but Mabel tells him he won't be able to even lift it. Using one of his talismans, he makes it lighter and holds it up to her. The match is called, and Seika is declared the winner. Seika reassures her and tells her to leave Kyle to him. The finals are up next, and the fighters take their positions. Their fight begins, but before Kyle can activate his eye, Seika summons a red mist that completely covers the field. Seika attacks with his flames, but it has no effect thanks to Kyle's gravity magic. Seika switches his tactic, summoning his mercury vines to restrain Kyle, but he is able to break free using his shadow magic. Kyle continues to approach, but Seika summons a gate, bringing forth a minotaur. Kyle attacks with his shadow, but it has no effect on the beast. The minotaur bats him away. Seika plans to let him live, but he is suddenly afflicted by a curse. Seika sets up his barrier to block the curse, and the markings fade. However, he has already taken too much damage and coughs up blood. Kyle grabs onto Seika and passes on his final message for Mabel. Seika refuses to accept defeat and prepares to use a technique to bring Kyle back from the dead. Yuki begs him to stop, warning that the technique will draw too much attention and reminding him of the consequences he faced in his previous life. Seika cancels the technique, and after the match, Kyle is gone. Seika explains to the officials that he completely vaporized Kyle. Seika is declared the winner of the tournament and keeps the prize money. He had hidden Kyle's body in his void to let Mabel give him a proper burial. Mabel thanks Seika for his help, and Seika passes on Kyle's final message. Kyle apologized for breaking her clover hairpin, a cherished item from their childhood. Mabel cries at the memory and says goodbye to her brother. Back at the academy, Seika meets with the principal, who reveals that she figured out their plan of using Mabel. The principal explains that she sent Seika to the tournament to save Mabel, having pitied her and wanting to make her lose without dying. She calls Seika her trump card, but Seika wonders what she would have done if he had lost. The principal assures him that she has a way of gauging someone's strength. Summer break approaches, and Alma wonders how the others will spend it. Seika says he has been requested to investigate dragons in the country of Astelia. His father was originally requested but is too busy, so Seika is going instead. He asks Aoife to join him, and she quickly agrees. Suddenly, two people enter the hall and introduce themselves as Cecilio, the first prince of Astelia, and his elven attendant Liz. Seika exchanges greetings, but Cecilio is soon drawn to Aoife and immediately asks her to join his harem and become one of his wives. Everyone is shocked. Liz tells Cecilio he is making a scene, so they move to a private room to discuss. They talk about the dragon investigation, and Cecilio explains that, according to legend, the dragon was originally hatched from an egg by the royal family. The dragon lived alongside humans for over a century, but recently started acting strange, attacking fields and livestock. Cecilio asks Seika to investigate what is going on. 2 days later, Seika and Aoife join the prince's caravan to Estelia. 9 days later, they reach the capital of Estelia and find the surroundings quite beautiful. However, Cecilio mentions that the dragon has caused the people to live in fear and disrupted trade. The dragon flies overhead, and Seika notes its size. Suddenly, the dragon dives down at them, swooping past. A spell is chanted, summoning an impressive lava tiger that lunges at the dragon, narrowly missing it as the dragon flies away. The tiger then turns its attention to Aoife and charges, but Seika manages to stop it just in time, though the tiger starts to melt the surroundings. Seika rushes over and prepares to destroy the tiger, but it is suddenly restrained by Zek, the summoner, who reprimands the tiger and returns it to his book. The prince comes running and warns Zek that he almost harmed his guest. Zek claims he was just trying to chase off the dragon, which has been getting closer and attacking people. Seika wonders about Zek's intentions, and the prince explains that Zek is the head of some mercenaries he hired to hunt the dragon. Seika questions the decision, pointing out that the lava tiger couldn't possibly kill the dragon. Zek, boasting about killing dragons in the past, gets heated, but the prince breaks them up, reprimanding Seika for provoking Zek. Seika apologizes, explaining he lost his temper because Aoife was put in danger. Seika asks Aoife why she didn't defend herself with magic, and Aoife says she was scared and froze up. He reprimands her, saying he won't always be around to protect her, and she needs to be able to defend herself. He wonders if it was a mistake to bring her, and she starts to tear up. Seika insists that Aoife must learn to fight, or at least run or ask for help when in danger. The next day, they head to the library to find more information about the dragons. Seika discovers that a similar situation occurred a few hundred years ago. The queen had hatched a dragon from an egg, and it lived alongside the people. Eventually, another dragon arrived, and they lived together in the mountains. After 50 years, they became hostile because they had a baby. The baby dragons left the nest after becoming adults, and after another 50 years, the female dragon died of old age. This was all 100 years ago. Aoife thinks the situation is different since there should be only one male dragon, so it can't be about protecting young. Seika decides it would be best to go up the mountain to see for himself. Aoife thinks it's too risky, but Seika is confident he can get away if needed. Seika then informs the prince that he is headed up the mountain to see the dragon. The prince, thinking this will take a few days, considers it a perfect time to make a move. Seika says goodbye to Aoife and heads up the mountain. Seika makes it up the mountain and finds the dragon. The dragon immediately breathes fire at him, but Seika blocks it with his barrier. The dragon takes flight and dives at him, but Seika is able to teleport out of the way with his talisman. He opens a gate and summons one of his demons, which lets off an intense scream that brings the dragon to its knees. Seika proceeds to create a fireproof net and binds the dragon. Seika heads over to the nest and finds that there is an egg. He finds it strange no choice since the dragon should be male, but mentions that some creatures can change their gender and even reproduce on their own. He starts caring for the egg and realizes that the legends about the royal family hatching a dragon were probably true. He starts heating the egg and thinks that the dragon was struggling to keep the egg warm. Since they now know why the dragon became aggressive, Seika thinks it's time to head back, but the dragon insists on keeping him around. Meanwhile, Aoife is brought over to see the prince. He talks to a man named Grood, who examines Aoife as a specimen, factoring in her education and magic ability, and comes up with a price for what she is worth. The prince agrees with the price and confirms with his subordinate. Aoife is confused about what they are talking about, and the prince takes out a huge bag of gold, telling her she is going to be freed. Aoife mentions that they would need Seika's permission, but the prince insists he is paying so much that Seika would not be able to refuse. He even suggests that he would abolish slavery to force Seika to sell her to him. Aoife tries to refuse, and the prince wonders why she would choose to be a slave. Aoife says that even as a slave, she is able to choose what she does. The prince's subordinate returns with the paperwork, saying they need Aoife's fingerprint. The prince becomes hesitant, but the man tells him that Aoife will eventually realize that this was for her own good. The prince has his guards restrain Aoife, and she prepares to defend herself, but Liz creates a barrier that blocks her magic. Using her magic, Liz cuts Aoife's finger and prepares to get her fingerprint. But at that moment, the dragon arrives and the barrier is destroyed. Seika appears and apologizes for arriving in such a manner. He explains the situation with the dragon and says that he needs a fire user to help warm the egg. He sees Aoife and calls out for her help. Liz warns her not to go, but Aoife admits that she loves him, and the two fly away. When they reach the nest, they are suddenly attacked by the lava tiger. Seika stops it with his magic and calls out for Zekt to come out of hiding. Zekt and his men appear, and Seika realizes that they were using the prince to get to the dragon's egg, seeing that Seika has seen through his plans. Zekt decides to get rid of Seika. He commands his lava tiger to attack, but it gets blown up by a geyser of water. Seika is surprised, and Aoife refuses to be scared like last time. The tiger attacks again, and Zekt sends his men to attack, but Seika uses his white inferno attack, unleashing an enormous blast of white flame that completely vaporizes the tiger. Zekt wonders who Seika is, and Seika just calls himself the world's strongest mage. The dragon approaches, and all of Zekt's men make a run for it. But Seika captures them all with his vines and reduces Zekt's book to ashes. Seika praises Aoife and is impressed that she has learned water magic, giving her a head pat. Seika reports to the prince, revealing that Zekt was deceiving him. The prince has Zekt and his men locked up. Seika explains that the dragon became aggressive because it was struggling to keep its egg warm. He suggests that if the prince helps to hatch the egg, the dragon will see the people as its family and protect the lands. However, the prince is unhappy with this solution, thinking it will be seen as indecisive and fail to satisfy the imperial court. He asks Seika to slay the dragon, suggesting that since Seika is alone in the nest, he could poison the dragon. Seika can't believe what he is asking and refuses. The prince calls for his guards, suspecting Seika of magically influencing the dragon. He tells Aoife that she is now free and that Seika is dangerous. Seika intervenes, losing his temper and calling the prince a child, insisting he will never hand Aoife over. Seika worries that he might have gone too far, but Liz starts laughing and tells the guards to stand down. She asks Aoife what she thinks about everything, and Aoife once again refuses the prince's offer, saying she just wants to return to the academy with Seika. Liz tells the prince to give up and apologizes to Seika, who also apologizes for losing his temper. Liz has a private chat with Aoife and sees that she is insistent on being with Seika. She gives Aoife some light spirits, which are rare and can be used for healing, and wishes her the best of luck. Elsewhere, a group of devils is fighting against a bunch of monsters. The devils have impressive abilities and easily defeat the monsters. The devils surround a man who is shocked they defeated his monsters so easily. The boss asks the man to show the way, but the man doesn't trust him. Suddenly, the man's trump card appears, a Cyclops. The boss decides to handle it himself. When the Cyclops attacks, the boss easily destroys its weapon and takes the Cyclops out. The other demons are impressed and finish off the man. It seems they are on a mission to find and kill the hero. Back at the academy, Seika tells Amyu that he wants her to meet his family. She is shocked, but Seika clarifies that he is going home during their break, and his father wants to meet the mage who can use every element. Amyu agrees, and Seika invites her to come along as well. When they arrive, they are greeted by his older brother Loth. Seika introduces his friends. They are interrupted when Glai appears. Seika worries that Glai is still angry about taking his spot at the academy. Glai almost thanks Seika and is glad he joined the army instead. Glai introduces Fiona as the Holy Princess, which shocks everyone. As they head inside, Yuki wonders about the Holy Princess. It's not an official title. She was born of the Emperor and a priestess, so she has the blood of both. They all have dinner together. Seika's father, however, mentions that Seika has been doing well at the academy. His father compliments him on his dragon investigation, and his mother tells him to write to them more often, which surprises Seika because he has always felt ignored by her. Later, Seika sees Glai training hard and understands why the princess chose him as her knight. Glai reveals that the princess has the ability to see the future, inherited from her mother, who was an oracle. Seika wonders about this ability, and Glai warns him not to get in the way of the princess's plans. The next day, the princess is lonely, playing chess by herself, so Seika joins her. She challenges him to a game with a wager. The winner can make the loser do anything. Seika agrees, and they start playing. Seika wonders if this is what she saw with her future sight, and the princess is surprised he knows about it. The princess reveals her true intentions. She wants to save people from a large hole children are playing near, but she can't get specific details due to the potential for altering the future. Seika agrees to help her. They prepare to head back to the capital, and Loth sees them off. Mabel wishes she could stay longer to relax, but Seika reminds her of her studies. They head off, and Seika rides with Glai and the princess in the most stable carriage. Glai is surprised by Seika's weakness, and Seika watches over their caravan. Suddenly, there is an explosion, but only a decoy carriage is destroyed. Seika goes outside and sees that they are being attacked by bandits. The bandit leader orders his men to search the carriages and fire arrows at Seika. Seika creates a magnetic cloud to block the arrows. The bandits use magic, but Seika easily blocks it with his barrier. Glai and his men fight back, and the princess requests that the bandits be taken alive. Seika uses his vines to restrain all the bandits. He meets up with the group, wondering why the bandits attacked. Despite having an army and what to do with them, the princess thanks Seika for his help and says she has already prepared spare carriages for transporting the bandits back to the capital for interrogation. Seika worries about the danger if the bandits escape, but the princess is confident they will behave because they are waiting for reinforcements. Seika thinks the bandits are even more dangerous, but the princess assures him their reinforcements won't be arriving, so there is no need to worry. They return to the capital and part ways. The princess thanks them for their company and reminds Seika that she will always be on his side. Meanwhile, the bandits who had attacked previously have been destroyed by a group of demons. Determined to succeed in their mission to kill the hero, they head towards the capital. Outside the city, the demon leader Zor notes the absence of Imperial guards or high-level adventurers and senses something uneasy. He explains their plan to the others to split up and drive all the students toward the central building, where they will slaughter everyone and cause chaos until the hero appears. Confident in their success, the demons teleport into the city. However, they find themselves surrounded by a red mist. Demon Ganas launches a flame attack at some approaching students, but finds something unusual. As Witch Perseria and Lonnie the Beast Tamer explore the area, they discuss their growth since following Zor. They notice a student running by, and Lonnie sends his wolves after him. The wolves chase him into the mist, but Lonnie senses something wrong, calls his wolves back, and finds something strange. Ogre King Mudarev arrives and is confused by the lack of people. He is attacked by Mabel, who thinks he is working for the Merchants Association, but he has no idea what she's talking about. They engage in a fierce battle. Mudarev is impressed by Mabel's skill with her axe and blows her away, but she uses her magic to bind him with darkness. Mudarev, resistant to all magic, breaks free and attacks with his club, only to find that Mabel has disappeared. Zor finds himself in a strange location and Ganis arrives, Noting that this was not their designated meeting point, they realize they were guided there and compare the talismans they found. Zor decides to retreat but is confronted by Seika, who reveals that everyone they saw was just his Shikigami. However, Mabel was real. Mudarev, seeing Seika's strength, is excited to fight him but is quickly decapitated as Seika cuts one of his talismans, revealing that Mudarev's resistance to curses was too low. Perseria attacks with her third eye, attempting to turn Seika to stone, but it fails. Seika summons a gigantic snake with an inner third eye, which causes Perseria's heart to stop, and she falls. Lonnie's snake bursts from the ground but is no match for Seika's. Lonnie tries to befriend it with his taming ability but fails, and the snake devours him. Zor, in disbelief, realizes they have challenged the true Demon King and orders Gannis to escape with his teleportation while he holds Seika off. Zor tries to stall for time but is overwhelmed by Seika's magic. When the dust settles, it seems Gannis has managed to escape. Outside the city, he stumbles away, unable to believe that Seika is the Demon King. He is startled by a rabbit in a bush, but is suddenly stabbed in the chest by another of Seika's curses. Later, during another feast with the students, Seika wonders what he should say in his speech. But knights suddenly interrupt, accusing Alma of crimes against the Empire, specifically the slaying of a demon emissary. Amu is confused by the accusation and is arrested. Seika meets with the principal, who confirms that the Empire is trying to frame Amu. She expresses her concern about Seika taking rash actions and warns him to be cautious, but Seika doubts her ability to save Amu. That night, Seika summons his dragon, which remains disobedient. Yuki warns him not to go and suggests he should give up on saving Amu, but Seika, dismissive, orders his dragon to head to the capital. Seika arrives at the capital, using his talismans to search for Amu. He descends into the castle, unimpressed by their security. When guards notice him and blow a whistle, archers take position and shoot at him. Seika creates a magnetic cloud to protect himself from the arrows and drops 2 enormous boulders on the archers. He encounters more guards. He then summons a demon to cut down the remaining guards, burning them all with his flames. Seika reaches Amu, destroying her cell and telling her he's there to rescue her. Amu is concerned about the trouble Seika might get into for breaking her out, but Seika insists her life is at stake and explains that she is the hero of this cycle, reincarnated every few hundred years. The Empire is trying to get rid of her. Just then, Goliath appears, and Seika suggests that he still owes him a duel. Princess Fiona then arrives, claiming she only wants to talk. Seika notices her men outside, but knows they would be no match for him. He questions why she is trying to kill Amu when demons should be her enemies. The princess explains that while the hero once saved the country from demons, the current age sees both the Empire and the demons with their own armies, and neither side winning a war. The concept of the hero and Demon King are now relics of the past. She adds that the hero's existence could spark a war, and the demon's attempt to kill Amu was to prevent this. Seika debates whether to allow Amu to be sacrificed for peace, but the princess insists she is trying to save her, offering to do everything in her power, but Seika refuses to trust her. With no other option, the princess guides them to a carriage prepared for them, recommending they head to the free city of Lakana. As they prepare to leave, Seika feels guilty for not keeping his promise and decides to make amends. He summons numerous doors that release a vast number of talismans, creating a field that resurrects everyone he had killed. The princess is shocked, realizing this ruins her cover story of a monster attack. Seika apologized, stating he had good intentions. Seika and Amu leave the capital. Amu feels regret about having to drop out of the academy when they were so close to graduating, but looks forward to becoming adventurers. Meanwhile, the princess sends a letter explaining the situation to Mabel and Aoife. Seika and Amu eventually reach the free city of Lakana and are surprised to find Mabel and Aoife already there. The four are overjoyed to be reunited. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for the latest anime recaps.